Well. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave, ready to herp your derp once again as we get ready for some Saturday morning. Is it Saturday morning? Yes, it is Saturday morning. Analysis on all major markets today, because we do have closures for the weeklies on all of the traditional markets and Forex as well. So I want to follow up on that, of which we hit all of our downside targets from yesterday, now kind of ranging out, and the game of rotations, I believe, is about to begin. And as far as Bitcoin goes, well, Bitcoin might be in the next rotation, of which I do think that is a very interesting prospect as of right now. So I definitely want to be focusing on that, or following up on that from yesterday. And what else do I want to say? It's a very sad day for me today because I've actually gotten banned from my favorite fucking steakhouse. So life sucks right now. Anyways, more on that later. No, less on that later. You don't need to hear me cry about that. But for whatever reason, it's invading my mind right now, so I can't help myself. Anyways, let's go check out the Krown Chain application, which can be found at app.krownchain.net. And what do we see here? We do see that open interest more or less the same. We do see that Bitcoin dominance actually taking another 0.25% leg to the downside. So alt's really benefiting from Bitcoin's short-term bullishness and medium-term bullishness, and I do think that it's appropriate to be looking at them once again today. Looking at the fear and greed index, we're still kind of hovering in the mid 55s, up a couple points from yesterday, which is still very interesting here because Bitcoin has been in more or less a sideways consolidation for the past 3 months, and we haven't really gone into the greedy zone during that time, just kind of oscillating between the the upper echelons of the fearful zone and the neutral zone, which is where we are right now. So realistically, what does that kind of align with? I mean, it would, it'd be a little bit, it'd be another point, I suppose, on the Bulaw's side for a resolution in their favor, as far as the greater formation goes. But at the end of the day, still price action trumps all, or if you don't like that saying, then price action before anything else. I don't know, whatever saying you want to use. Anyways, let's go look at some actual charts right here, of which I want to start off with E-mini futures for SPY. And the weekly did close as a nice reversal dildo. So I do believe that we are going to see potential for reversals being set in place in all major markets right now. Actually, I really should start off with NASDAQ, because NASDAQ, I believe, is the leading indicator. And we do have a nice closure below last week's closure, which does confirm this as a local high, at least for now. And that would also confirm bearish divergence, 1, 2, 3 stabs coming in from our early January, early February, and also more recently our early July highs, of which I do believe that is going to initiate a target down in the next few weeks, at the very least down to low 10,000, nice even round number. And I very likely would be looking for continuation overall to wherever the 21 exponential moving average kind of sets in around that time in the next month or two, which would be in the mid 9,000s as of right now. Keep in mind that the monthly is going to be closing next week, so I do think that it's appropriate to kind of posture a little bit going into it, but still with 5 days left of trading, I believe it is. A lot can happen, of course, but closing here or lower, it will obviously make this look a little bit more like a shooting star dildo. We will potentially have a play for bearish divergence available as well, going all the way back from these last few spike highs, basically the same thing over the last few years actually, and that could really drive things down to the mid to low 9,000s overall. But still, that's still about a week away from confirming anyways. But right now, it's one step before the next, and the focus right now is on the weekly. Do I think that this is going to probably pop back up and try another rally coming into Monday next week? Yes, I do. But overall, I do believe that this is pretty damning as far as at least the short and medium term timeframes go. That we're going to play out a little bit of sideways here, probably open up next week in the 10.7, maybe 10.8 region, try to put in a rally there. But overall, I do believe that this is going to be sideways and down over the next few weeks. Especially if we take out this week's low coming into next week, and kind of set up that monthly for a little bit more of a reversal-ish type closure. Remember that there is bearish divergence present on this one, and we actually exceeded my target quite a bit yesterday. I think yesterday I said down to 10.5, and then probably a bounce. We didn't really get a bounce here, but I do believe that it is actually setting up for a bounce coming into next week. I imagine that the lower term timeframes are setting up some bullish divergence. Yep, we do have it on the hourly, which is actually a decent time frame for traditional markets for the day traders. However, I do believe that the easy part of that's already played out. I mean, we got the move up to 10,550, a little bit more anemic than what I was looking for. But at the end of the day, I'd still look at the overall trajectory as more or less the same. We do have no, we do not have any hidden bullish divergences being built up here. So realistically, while I do think that next week probably has a little bit of an up open, probably does sell off into it. And more importantly, it's not to say that I'm always gonna I'm gonna be 100% right on that. No, this is all about statistics and probabilities. But as long as as long as NAS futures are trading below about 10,850, I would be looking at this as very likely to trade sideways and then down, putting in a major top here, at least for the medium term time frames. Does not imply macro move. The monthly will take care of that. So we'll see if it's potential coming into the closure of the monthly this next week, which is also going to be the next weekly closure as well. So I imagine a lot's going to be decided on that. Some of the big drivers of traditional markets, Tesla, Microsoft, Apple, all doing the same thing. Tesla came down to our 1380 target from yesterday. No, I mean, is it going to set up for a little bit of a bounce on open next week? I mean, it actually looks like continuation. I wouldn't be surprised if we open down around like 1300 coming into next week and then play out a bounce from there. But overall, same thing here as well. Do I think that this one's just going to shatter down right here, right now? Probably not. But I do think more or less the same thing as NASDAQ. Probably, or at least for this one, actually, maybe more of a down open coming into next week and then attempts a bounce. Do we get back up to like 1500 or 1600? Probably yes. But that's likely going to be a sell. Major bearish divergence, not just built up, but confirmed here on the daily. 1, 2, 3 drives and down, hitting that target to 1380-ish region. And in the weekly, really setting up for a pretty abysmal close, or confirming a pretty abysmal close, which I do believe leads for another move down. After some sort of initial, probably does open down coming into next week, but I do think that bounces. But overall, later into next week, I'd probably be looking for it to fill this gap down around 1200-ish region and reach for the 10 simple on the weekly. The monthly as well is going to have a potential to really close in a very precarious place. Anywhere below 1300 is going to be absolutely abysmal. Even here or lower, this speaking at the $1,400 level is going to be potentially problematic, as momentum also does, hinted across to the downside, which will remain to the downside as long as we below 1600 end of next week. And no bearish divergence here. I think that this is a little bit too far away, being 2013, 7 years ago, probably not really relevant. But historical volatility percentile on all higher time frames was a giveaway, as we do see that is coming down as well. And we also see that weekly RSI giving us some nice divergence plays. So I do think that this one follows through to the downside coming into next week. Microsoft, same fucking thing, except we already hit our downside target around the 195, 19600 area, or sorry, 196 area. I would be looking for a bounce off that coming into next week. Same, kind of the same chart here as well. Probably does try to bounce back up to 208, maybe 210, something like that, and then sideways and down. In Apple, I'd imagine it's going to be the same thing. Actually exceeded my 275 target a little bit more than I was looking for, but playing out that bearish divergence on the daily as well. Also daily, a jewel sell signal right here, bringing us down all the way to, actually, whoa, 350. 350 was a target that I was not looking to be hit until like this coming week, but that's why time is not something that's really applicable to my sort of analysis. I go level by level, and well, fair enough. We broke the 275 level. Then what's next? 250, baby, and probably same thing here. Bounces up, maybe reaches back up towards 380, 385 region. However, sideways and down, probably the name of the game here overall, as the monthly is going to be setting up for a pretty nasty closure. Also confirming that bearish divergence, 1, 2, 3 drives going all the way back to September 2018, right there. If we close here or lower, essentially. So still, a lot of trading left in the week. But I just want to show how like these things, follow up over time, and how those trade ideas can essentially evolve. And this week was a very good trading week. If you were trading traditional markets or even just watching, the experience that you get from looking at something like this is pretty much invaluable, to be honest with you, as this is classic stuff right here. Like I've been saying for something like Tesla, which I don't pick on Tesla because of Elon Musk. I'm actually a massive Elon Musk fan. I've humongous, tremendous respect for someone who's like actually trying to better life for everyone else. That's pretty much the noblest cause that you can have. But the funny thing is is that, you know, it gets the same sort of cult-like mentality that we have for things like Bitcoin, things like gold, things like silver, things like Beanie Babies. You don't like that last one, do you, if you like Bitcoin? But, you know, you get my point. You go onto Tesla, Reddit, or whatever the fuck that it is, and everyone and their mother is talking about how they got, you know, rich as fuck trading this one. But it's only on paper, and it will likely stay only on paper. Sorry. It's fucked up, but it's probably true. No, of course, some, the very smart people, they probably have been taking profits along the way. And now we're going to have a new generation of millennial bag holders. As this thing comes down to likely 500 and below over the next few years. Can I be wrong in that? Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that with my a little bit exuberant irrationality for that, I will be punished by the trading gods. But, as long as it's below 1650, I do believe that this thing's setting up for a pretty major top here. And the point that I want to make is actually a positive point. If you've been watching this one and you were around in 2017 for Bitcoin, you probably noticed a lot of similar things. But what you probably noticed the most, if you were trading both of these assets, was the emotions going along with this. As that's one of the, it's weird, but it seems to work quite well. Just watching the emotions of both the market and also yourself, into a rally like this, which is a very impressive rally, absolutely. However, usually those sorts of rallies end in tears for the hodlers and believers. Same thing for Bitcoin over the last few years. It hit 20,000 and then never got anywhere near for 3 years prior, or 3 years following. But now, actually, let's focus on Bitcoin, because it is very interesting right here. This is looking very good. Setting in a base above 9,500 is strength. That is strong. We are about to get to we're pretty much confirming right now a bullish cross to the 10 simple and the 21 exponential moving average. Now, this is obviously not super super exciting, just because this cross does tend to be a little bit too it's more on the reactive side. We're using very low period moving averages here in the grand scheme of things, and so they do give bad signals all the time, as you see right here, but when things are trending, it will get things the most fast with a decent amount of hit rate is kind of the picture that I'm painting. And as you can see right here, just kind of following up from our blue boxes to blue boxes. Whoops, wrong chart. Let's go to this one. It is looking more or less healthy. I really like this retest of this blue box down around 94.50-ish region from the past prior 2 days. And as long as we're above there, my bias essentially is to the upside. Can we have another test back down there over the weekend? The weekend is kind of like the twilight zone as far as I'm concerned. I'd be looking for both tests to the upside and the downside, perhaps, just to wash everyone out. But as long as we're playing between this region right here, my bias boner is to the upside. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking at this as a local high. It is not confirmed as a local high just yet. Doesn't mean that I can't get confirmed as a local high, but it won't be confirmed as a local high, at least in the way that I look at it, until Bitcoin heads back down below 94.50. For the aggressive traders, they'll just wait for a tick below there, below 22nd of July's low, which is actually 94.50 and 4 cents on GDEX to the fucking dollar, or to the cent, I guess. And the more conservative traders will probably wait for like a 4-hour closure below that level. But either of those very likely, not just very likely, will confirm this as a local high, and then we continue the downtrend on the very high time frames, which would very likely initiate a move all the way back down to the $9,000 to $9,100 base. Now, I actually don't think that that's what's happening right here. This looks like it's having a bullish reset. You can see that Bitcoin's essentially just sitting in higher highs and higher lows along the way, as momentum also just have a bullish reset right here on the 4-hour, which is actually getting things rather well. And we do see that this trend line coming in all the way from 10th of July, actually, I would consider this getting respected. These should be looked at as regressions, and naturally momentum gains momentum in itself on an oscillator as time goes on. So you see reads like this rather frequently. Now, it would also suggest that, we probably, after the next sort of move or two, we probably do play into a nice short-term and probably even medium-term consolidation downwards. But for right now, looking like it's going to have another chance to cross the upside, and that will be confirmed on the next 4-hour delta closure anywhere above 9,600, which very likely sets it up for another test up to this area right here, the $9,700 swing high coming in from 22nd of June, which is still very much relevant. Now, if, just because we come back up there and test it, does that mean that it's, it's destined to break to the upside? No, it's not. And especially over a weekend, I'd be a little bit more conservative with those sorts of things. But I am holding positions from, that I had born from this week based upon what I was talking about earlier in the week. I think that I've kind of made a resolution to not really go over too specifically my positions anymore, because it seems to really put out the wrong sort of vibes for a channel like this and attract the wrong sort of person. So I'll kind of leave it at that. I think most people who have been here for a while can figure out what the fuck I'm doing just based upon my tools. And overall, if Bitcoin does break this area over the weekend, then yes, I would be looking for a march up to 9,900 to 10,000-ish region. I think that is a little bit less likely to happen over the weekend. But if it were to happen, yes, that's not outside of the realm of possibility, just because the trend right now on the daily in this past prior week was to the upside. So following through with that on the weekend would actually not break that sort of trend that I've been looking at since December 2017, where we don't get any reversals on the weekends that sustained follow through the next week that were contrary to the prior week's direction. That's all fucking convoluted right there. But basically what I'm saying is, if the current week's direction was up, and then over the weekend we have a reversal, then the next following week during the actual trading week, when traditional markets are open and professionals are trading in their booths, we've never seen continuation on the weekly's reversal direction since 2017 December, when CMEs debuted. And I would imagine that's just because, well, nowadays you're on a professional schedule, which means that weekends are more or less boring. But that doesn't mean that we can't get a test to both sides of the range here. And I think that's it would be good enough to just frustrate the shit out of cryptocurrency degenerate weekend traders. But fair enough, that's part of the game, and the levels are very, 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 very well set here and documented, and I do favor the upside myself. Looking at daily Stokes, still pointed up north, still painfully wrecked is what it looks like to me, and will remain painfully wrecked as long as Bitcoin is trading above or closing above 93.25 region, which is actually where that cross is happening on the 10 simple and 21 exponential numbers. So I do like that. It's essentially confirming that daily momentum is also now moving into more kind of short-term, medium-term trend momentum as far as moving averages go, which, like I said, those are kind of like the lowest period moving averages that I pay attention to that actually have efficacy from what I've seen in my day. A nice 10 year, a little bit over 10 years now of trading history. Anyways, looking at daily RSI looks more or less healthy to me. I don't have any major issues with this. I also would not mind to move back down to test around the exponential on this, which, by the way, would just put us back down around 94.50. So if we did close a daily dildo back down around there, it probably does bounce, or at least it kind of insinuates such things. And with historical volatility percentile this low, for this long, which is just a meme that I've been fucking kept on saying for a while now, but I've been applying different settings, and this is this is with a 365 look back period right now. These are still very, 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 very aggressive contraction phases. So the expansion from this area is likely to be likely to be in line with what we've seen from similar reads before from this specific signature, of which we have one in March 2019, relatively similar. We have one in October, November 2018. Both of these moving in opposite directions, but to give you an idea of what this produced in the past, that's a 50% move to the downside and to the upside. And it's not always going to be like this, but to the upside in 2019, that was a 250% move to the upside. So very, 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 very impressive stuff. And that just makes me think that the next resolution of this range that we're working on very likely does drive price action for the following, quarter of the year, 3-4 months perhaps. And that makes things very exciting, because if we do break to the upside, then it's very much relevant to not just be talking about 11,000, 11,500, but we could be looking at a macro move as far as as far as the weekly is concerned. Anywhere above 11,500 is massively interesting from a macro perspective, as that's the area that Bitcoin's been getting rejected at ever since January 2018. So it would be a massive macro change of behavior, and we could talk about targets to 14,000, 16,000, 20,000 after that, but realistically, just the macro long-term bias would be, once again, we are trending strongly to the upside, and there's going to be nasty dumps and everything here and there, but overall those dumps are to be bought until Bitcoin does the equal but opposite reaction below 11,500 on the other side. So of course that's still well and far away, but I think that it is worth mentioning here that with the way that especially CMEs have kind of closed out this week, and let me just should I get rid of this chart? Yeah, might as well get rid of this chart. We can always redo it. You know, with the way that CMEs closed this last weekly, this would be the main interpretation of what we're looking at right now. This is an ascending triangle on the weekly with a measured move, as I showed right here, all the way up to about 11,500-ish region, which is rather interesting. Now, of course, this does not get confirmed until Bitcoin starts closing, you know, 12-hour or daily dollars above 9,900 or 10,000, depending upon how aggressive you want to be. And of course, this is not financial advice. I mean, this is the furthest thing from financial advice that could ever be said. But you know that would look like a decent setup. And what else do we have here? You know, keep in mind that CMEs have actually closed out the weekly. Like this weekly set in stone, and it's just spot that's trading right now. So Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, I'd look for something relatively similar to this. What's also interesting about this is that we will see a bounce off the exponential for this on the weekly RSI, which is good. And we also will see momentum oscillators on the weekly not turn back up to the upside. Actually not turn back up to the upside. Yeah, that only happens with the resolution on a weekly closure above about 10,000 bucks. On spot price action, that same level would be about a little bit under 10,000 bucks, in fact. So, you know, still a good pivot to be working off of both ways, to the upside for the long-term timeframes, but do not confirm do not confuse long-term timeframes with macro timeframes. Right now, I'm considering the macro area 11,500, the long-term area at 10,000, and 10,000, you know, obviously does have those implications with reaching into the 11,000 territory, which can then set it up for, you know, a macro area. But these things, you know, based upon a weekly, are probably going to take some time. It's probably not happening today or tomorrow or even this next week or even the week after that. You know, it's going to take a little bit of patience if that is going to happen. And by the same token, I need to be very, 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 and 10 more varies direct in stating this as well. You know, just like to the downside, I was talking about all sorts of nasty downside targets when Bitcoin was grinding out the downside resolution right here at about 8950-ish region for a few weeks. You know, it's not tradable, at least in the way that I look at it. Until we actually break that area fully and formally, and you can see it right here. You know, this definitely teased a lot of aggressive traders many times. Wick right here, 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 and now I sound like I have a fucking lisp because maybe now I'm a raspy lesbian with a lispy voice too. But overall, you know, no closures were had below, and that's why I do err more on the side of conservative as far as trading goes. And so, you know, is it still possible that we could come back down around here and actually break this? Yeah, of course. But one thing before the next, you know, 94.50 first, then we could talk about a move back down to the $9,000 or $9,100 base. Does it potentially break after that? Could be, yeah, absolutely. But just like what we're doing right now, I do think that it's better to err on the side of the current strength. And looking at the 12-hour right here, it does look like it is trying to set in a higher low as it is right now. So that will be that'll be had by price action as long as we're actually floating above about 95.30-ish region on a 12-hour closure. But I should look at where momentum oscillators are for this one because it has been so damn good in the past. Looking at 12-hour Stokes, we are kind of snaking around a little bit. It does look like a weak cross to the downside, and more importantly, we will once again turn momentum back up to the upside on the 12-hour with any sort of a 12-hour delta closure above 9,600. So that would very likely give it another, the strength to make another stab up to 9,700. But just like, the downside, it's really not until we close above that region, this blue box territory right here for the, for the short-term range, where I'd really be targeting that move up to 9,900 to what's called 10,000, and being over a weekend, I would be more or less skeptical of a move like that right now. But things are set up rather nicely here. 4-hour does have the golden cross, and more importantly, it's getting respected. Trend is emerging from it. We did kind of see the same thing over here as well. A little bit of a meme back here. Did give you a nice, 4% move if you traded it absolutely perfectly, but that's, that doesn't really happen. Realistically, you're looking for a lot more based upon that, as that is usually what I look at as the lowest term time frame that actually has, good implications with price action that is tradable when you get a signal like that. Anyways, we got the counter signal, the golden cross right here. more recently, and price action is respecting it thus far and actually confirming a reversal in trend to the upside here. Whereas over here, didn't really get that follow through that you're looking for. Got one sort of trending move, but nothing after that. Could it be the same thing the other way? Yeah, could be, but that's why I put levels over, over crosses more than anything else. But it does set in a nice little bias here, and would essentially say the same thing that I've been saying earlier. As long as we're above 94.50-ish region, especially on a 4-hour closure, or sorry, 12-hour and daily closure, it's more or less sideways and probably a slight upwards bias. With the 4-hour Stokes, again, crossing back up to the upside above 95.87 on the next 4-hour closure. So you're seeing actually the 12-hour and 4-hour pretty much postured in the same region. And like I said earlier, the 4-hour looks to me like this would be interpreted as a bullish reset if it does kind of nestle within that range. Looking at the 3-hour, it's actually a little bit more lenient, showing momentum will actually cross back up to the upside with any sort of a closure above 95.77. So that, all in the same range, which is good. And this would be a bullish reset on this one as well, playing out the same sort of trend line. And this is why I look at it as a regression, because you'll notice that there's always an interplay between time frame and an oscillator. And so they'll naturally have like some sort of meeting point in the middle, especially when, the same sort of areas, change around that momentum. Looking at the 2-hour, we do see that momentum is actually already up to the upside right now and will remain to the upside as long as we're closing above 95.50. That is kind of like your last little base that it put on the very low time frames, but that's not really tradable for myself. I don't really trade over the weekends unless if I had positions open during the week. And hourly shown in the same area as well, actually freshly crossing up, rejecting the bearish control zone, and will remain to the upside as long as we're above 95.50-ish region. So all of these things come into collusion with each other, and that makes for good. What's the word that I'm looking for? That word that happens when everything agrees with each other. Well, confluence. Yeah, that's it. Anyways, go check out some of my secondary tools over here as well. Not something that I do all the time, but I do think that it is worth mentioning on the daily Bollinger Bands. This is still kind of the key for me for keeping up this, the short-term and medium-term trend. I want to see Bitcoin close a daily dodo above the top side Bollinger Band, which is 9,600. Remember, 9,600 is where the 12-hour momentum, once again turns back up to the upside, as well as all the lower-term timeframes. And from a Bollinger Band perspective, we would not only be living above the 20 simple as it has a positive slope, but also more importantly, when you are landing outside the top Bollinger Bands, or the bottom for that matter, you are essentially in a trending posture. So to me, that would be a good insight that we are going to continue this one at least for another leg up and see 9,900 to 10,000, and then probably play out a short term down from there, and then come back after that and see what we got. But for right now, I don't see any issues with divergences on MACD histogram. MACD's turning nice and positive right there. Not the biggest deal, but what's more important here. And we spoke about this earlier in this past week. We saw something of a particular interest right here when Bitcoin did retake the median Bollinger Band, but also cross momentum on the MACD back up to the upside. That's actually what you're looking for, and that actually is the right way to be playing MACD sort of drives like that. It's not just looking for crosses; it's crosses plus a change, a shift in the not momentum, but I'm lost for words today. God damn it, man. It's the lack of steak that I've had in my life the last few days. But essentially, what does it imply? It implies that we're looking at a shift in perspective from that time frame as momentum from the MACD does turn up while we actually break a short-term pivot. That's the word that I'm looking for. Yes. So that, that buy is essentially confirmed. And would still align with some more with a little bit of an upside bias here, but during the weekend, what am I mostly looking for? I'm mostly looking for sideways and just a really sloppy market. So don't confuse my words right now. I'm not necessarily saying that Bitcoin's gonna fucking green dildo itself to the goddamn moons here. However, sideways into the weekend is more or less good, I'd say, with probably resolution, sometime around the time that CME's open at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on Sunday, or and what's more likely around New York Stock Exchange open on Monday. And here's like a weird thing. I need to find a chart to prove this, but there has been some good studies done showing that the most volatility that happens on Bitcoin, like the most actual movement that we get, usually happens either on Wednesday or Thursday, and to a lesser degree Tuesday. Those seem to be the days when Bitcoin does start to move, so to speak. Is that always going to be the case like that? No, I wouldn't say so. But for the past year and a half, it actually has been working rather well. Okay, what else do we want to look at? Let's see. How long is this video about? 30 minutes? What the fuck? I want to follow up on euro dollar heading up to the 117.5 target. Massive girthy green dildo closure. Does next week open down a little bit? If it does, I don't think it really matters all that much. I do think that upwards target gets met. Like I've been saying, I am more or less bullish all the way up to, at the very least, 118 actually. So it's more like 118. It's like the upper, around 118. And then probably does get extension to the 200 exponential average on the monthly, coming into the next couple of months. Long term though, I'm actually massively bearish. Well, I wouldn't say I'm massively bearish on this, but I'd be massively bullish on the dollar, like, years out. But, for the next few months, maybe even next year or two, I have to be bearish on most dollar pairings unless if something crazy happens. And right now with very politically driven and strange market, that could definitely happen, but as far as charts go, looks like Dixie wants to take that major leg down to the 200 exponential average, and you'll basically find that the Dixie chart and the euro dollar chart are kind of like inverted charts related to each other. Gold's another one that I want to follow up on. So I'm going to be wrong on the short-term consolidation for gold. Gold's just green dildoing itself. Well, no. Actually, no, I'm not going to be wrong on this. I actually do think that this still holds true. I think that we do come back down and test around like the mid 18s, but this is setting up for a phenomenal week. It's already closed phenomenally on a weekly. So I would be looking for a pullback coming into next week, but that pullback's very likely going to be an opportunity. The monthly is setting up for a phenomenal closure on new highs, and I'd be looking for this to make new all-time highs coming into August, assuming that condition is met. But it looks very, 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 very likely here. Gold's probably the best chart in all markets as it is right now. Even better than Link, which actually I haven't looked at right now. So let's go check out what good old Linky is doing at 80,000 Satoshis. I think I said yesterday that I'd be looking for a pop back up to 90,000 Satoshis. I actually do still think that that's probably what's happening here. Putting in a little bit of sideways above 76,000 Satoshis is fine. That's actually rather constructive, setting a little bit of a higher low here. Probably going to play out some hidden bullish divergence along the way as well on the daily. I do think that it gets another try back up to 90,000 Satoshis. And then I really want to see the weekly closure. I don't think it's appropriate for me to comment on anything more than that. This is still fine as it is right now. If this was topping out, I'd be expecting bearish divergence on higher term timeframes, which we got on the daily, but not on the weekly. And the daily speaks towards a long-term trend, but the weekly would speak on an asset that's this young towards the macro trend. So I still think that the weekly actually probably tries again back up to 90,000 coming into next week, and then we'll decide from there. But I actually think that this one probably gets another leg up. Overall, still, if we were just talking about cryptocurrencies, it's probably one of the best charts there until you start looking at some of these DeFi projects, of which one of my friends, I don't know what name he trains under now, but he used to go by IAMS, has been showing me all these crazy fucking DeFi protocols, whatever the fuck they are, just going straight moonshot like 2017 style for the altcoin market. Fair enough. Anyways, what else do we want to look at? Maybe Cardano really quick. Cardano, I have to maintain what I've been saying for a while now. I need to see the weekly closure here. It's looking less and less like this is going to be a reversal. If Cardano closes like this coming into Sunday, I would not be considering this a reversal as it is. I'd probably be looking for another try back up to the 1500 and beyond mark coming into the next couple weeks. Yeah, this looks fine right now. This looks fine. I'd be looking for another stab back up to 1400 before anything else short term, and then if it does come back down below the 21 at 1250, then yes, I would call a reversal here on the weekly, coming back down to 1000 satoshis and maybe beyond. But for right now, it looks like a bullish reset as well, and the action coming in from today actually is looking pretty good. So moving over the weekend, maintaining its nice posturing. Do have to give respect where respect is due. What else do we have? Oh, Mr. Buteral versus Bitcoin. Let's check that one out as well. I think we had a target of like 0.0278 or something like that. I'm curious if we hit it. Oh, we exceeded it. We're heading now to the long-term target all the way to the 200 exponential moving average at 0.0315. Short-term target was hit. Yeah, 0.0277 is what I had. And the weekly setting up for a phenomenal closure. So yeah, I'd be looking for a hit up here, meet the measure move on top of that, and then that's where actually the macro area. Well, is the macro area there? No, it's technically the macro area is technically like 0.03853 or 39. That's where the macro area is, but above the 200 exponential moving average, that would be very, 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 very good overall, and I'd be looking for extension very likely to that macro area. And does that set it up for potential breaks to the upside? Well, I mean, you'd have to go with the trend at that point, and at that point, it would be your friend. We did have a dual hodl your long. We had a dual buy signal right here, then a hodl your long signal right here on 1st of June. And yeah, I'd say that that's more or less playing out right now and looks good. Do we want to look at Litecoin versus Bitcoin? I'm curious what something like this is looking like. Even a very obviously shitty chart over a long time is going to get some love during this part of the market. So it does seem like we're going into rotations for the cryptocurrency space as well. So the way that it's looking like to me is we had NASDAQ and techs go first, which is really only just a few stocks. I mean, I think 6 stocks in there make up most of the heavy lifting. Probably going into the health sector after that, then maybe retail, housing, something like that as far as traditional markets go, and it looks like Bitcoin's going to be a part of that in the rest of the cryptos. So everything kind of gets rotated here, and then once all the weak ones, all the laggards are done rallying, then we probably get a full market unison, or in unison once again, in concert, as the saying goes, and fun times. but we'll see where we're at before that happens. So obviously triple Qs, actually I forgot to cover this one as well, but very likely looking like it's putting in potential reversal here. Very likely to open up next week, open up next week and put in a rally to 262.5, maybe even all the way back up to the top at 266. Well, this one can still pull through. I'd actually be more or less neutral in this, but I do strongly believe it opens up into next week. Question is that going to be a sell or not? I don't know. The problem is that we could very easily still see another leg up on the broad market. But I do think that mostly techs are done here, and they're going to trade sideways and down for a little bit of time. What else do we want to check out? Are we pretty much done? Are we done yet? Are we done yet? I'm asking myself these questions. Silly. Let's go back to Bitcoin and let's go look at probabilities now. So it's basically the same areas as yesterday. 94.50 to the downside would very likely denote a short-term medium-term move back down to $9,000 to $9,100 base right here. Does that potentially result in actual breakage of 9,000, initiate targets all the way down to mid to high 7,000s? Yes, it's possible. But as long as we're above 94.50, especially on a 4-hour closure, I don't really see any real reason to be looking for a move like that. By the same token, above 9,700 or above 9,700 or a 4-hour dildo closure above actually 96.50 we could probably use. We'll turn all short-term and even medium-term momentum oscillators back up to the upside, which is rather enticing. And then I would be looking for a move back up here to 9,900 to 10,000, and that's going to really make this look a lot more healthy on the long term. We should probably check in on the monthly as well, but let's first look at probabilities. So first thing that I noticed with probabilities is that we are actually seeing the rings lose their upward slope, so that's a little bit problematic. And funnily enough, we have the same areas in here from yesterday, and guess what? The downside target probability is now favoring more than the above target probability. So what's most likely to happen on the weekends if this is going to remain bullish? Probably sideways. Probably sideways. If I had to go off of history, and these are not that far off from each other to begin with, but 34.75% probability for a daily closure above, and I'm actually using 9,700 right here to the upside, versus 41.38% probability to close below 94.50 to the downside, both having very similar implications with medium-term moves to the top side of the range or the bottom side of the range, respectively speaking. So these are tradable in the way that I look at it, and actually really do like this for options. This is incredibly helpful. Looking at 12-hour, we have similar probabilities here as well. 30 spot, basically 30.75% to the upside versus 37.5% probability to the downside. And by the way, 12-hour momentum on Bali and Pig's mom starting to turn down here as well. And it looks like the error correcting one is starting to level off and lose a little momentum here too, but that's not... well, I don't really know how to analyze that one actually in more detail than that, or at least I don't feel comfortable with it because I don't have enough personal history with it, and neither do I with this momentum oscillator as well. But I do like to follow them up because anytime that I can find a new tool that's going to tell me something that my main set of tools doesn't tell me, now that's a value added. But for right now, I'm still, I'd like to compare them, but I'm not exactly certain which. I need to find a novel situation where this one works better than RSI divergence or Stoke divergence or something like that. It did get the last move to the upside rather well, but so did the MACDs. So fair enough. It still remains to be seen, but for right now, it would actually say a little bit more caution, at least for the next couple of days, for the short-term momentum. Is what it would suggest, but like I said, still levels matter more than anything, just like a Vici. Okay, what else do we want to check out? Maybe I've talked your ear off enough already. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I feel like I'm missing something though. I'm sure that someone's gonna leave a very interesting comment saying, "Krown, you missed this, and you've been talking about it every day for the last 2 weeks, and then you didn't talk about it today. Do you not care? Do you not fucking care?" It's like, okay. Well, sometimes you just forget. All right. Well, I think that's probably good for now. Overall, short-term, medium-term, I'd be looking at sideways here in this range between 94.50 to 96.50, 9700-ish region as more or less setting up for continuation coming in next week. That's what I wanted to talk about. The monthly motherfuckers, because we're getting a new monthly next week. And a monthly close anywhere above 9,500 looks very good, actually. And what's also very interesting about that is I imagine, monthly momentum remains the upside as long as we're above 91.20. So this will be a little bit of a snake around, but it will be considered as a rejection of the bearish control zone, also bouncing off the exponential and very likely setting up for a move towards 11,000. I mean, the monthly looks constructive. What's also sombering about the monthly, though, is that the resolution of this current formation to the downside is still very much possible. But the thing with this is, and the point that I'm trying to make here, and the point that I have been making for the last month since we got last bi-monthly closure, which happened in start of June, is that this is still long-term bullish. So even if Bitcoin did break down on our current formation that we've been working on for the last 3 months to the downside, while I would be looking for a move down to upper or even mid 7,000s, that'd very likely be an opportunity here. I mean, this is a quite this is a pretty enlightening chart, I think. As far as trend goes and major levels. I mean, the 10 simples, even in the above like the low 8,000s, which is rather healthy, they all have positive slopes, for as much history that we have. And looking at the monthly as well, we don't really have enough information here to make too great of a decision based off of, or really any great decision at all. But the monthly jewel technically is bouncing off right now, which would say, it's more or less bullishly biased. So, at the end of the day, do I trust it all that much? I'd really like to see a lot more price action history. I'll be closing a bi-weekly tomorrow. Yeah, we are. No. Yes. I don't know. No, I don't think so, actually. Yeah, I think it's next week, but it's gonna have a chance to essentially set in a higher low right here, cross the 10 symbol to the upside of the 21, and a little bit of problems on momentum, but RSI looks very good, looks very healthy. So, you know, I do lean towards the upside here. I do think that Bitcoin's probably gonna work this one through. But hey, my opinion is wrong all the fucking time, man. My opinion is wrong all the fucking time. And I'd still be using 94.50 to the downside, 96.50 for a more aggressive trade to the upside versus 9,700 for more conservative, for, you know, targeting move back up to the top side of the range, potential to break out and resolve to the 11,000 and beyond territory. I think that's a good place for me to leave this one off. I would like to take a second to wish you the best and the happiest, because it's a nice little and not so hot Saturday morning over here in Helsinki, Finland. Take care, and until next time.